It's time for the Spoony One! Wrestling Show! It's time for the Spoony One!
Oh, man. Been a busy set of weeks, and when you start falling behind on the wrestling, it's really not worth talking about. It's not worth really trying to catch up, and besides that, there really wasn't much to talk about on SmackDown anyway. Mainly because I have no interest in anything that's going on SmackDown. It's weird because the wrestling's actually pretty good on SmackDown right now. It's pretty good, but like I just don't care about this vegetative state Undertaker thing. I don't care about Dolph Ziggler's quest to become Intercontinental Champion. His relationship with Vicky Guerrero, which still remains really skeevy. Especially Matt Stryker's obsession with her. Alberto Del Rio, I can just give or take or leave. I mean, and I've been busy with the whole Riff Tracks thing, which is actually it's. There was a little bit of problems. I should never have tried to put up the movie in its full form. That was kind of stupid of me. I should have just tried to do the Riff Tracks thing just from the beginning and do it that way. Really would have avoided a lot of headaches. Although I won't get too far into it. The guy contacted me and was actually very polite. Really reasonable about it too. He wasn't mad. He asked me and actually that was part of the reason I was so accommodating. And he asked me nicely, and really that's pretty much half the battle. Is if you come at me from a reasonable position and say I simply object to what you've done. I appreciate your interest in the film. Please take it down. I was like, yeah, no problem, man. You asked nice. I'll do something else with it. I have done. So he'll probably sell a bunch of movies because of it now. And hey, I know Tommy Wiseau might have taken a little bit of a better tack on that one instead of like legally threatening Doug with the whole problem over the room. I get the feeling the wording in the document was rather hostile. If you said, I appreciate your interest in the film, please take it down though, because so and he would, Tommy had probably a lot less grounds to stand on because it was a review and not necessarily what I had done, which wasn't right. I admit that. But anyway, I actually did see TNA Hardcore Justice, and yeah, I paid for a TNA pay-per-view, which is actually the first ever TNA pay-per-view I've ever paid for. Mainly, and it was only because I was watching it for this site, or for these videos. And actually, I had planned it to be kind of a special evening. I was going to have everyone over, and I was going to have even Scarlett over, and we were going to watch this really horrible wrestling show and have some laughs. But she wasn't able to make it, and my brother was asleep during most of it, so it was just me watching this ECW pay-per-view by myself. And I get the feeling this is another one of those moments where I am probably not the guy to watch. I came into this with a bad attitude, you know what I'm saying? So like right away, if you weren't feeling the CCW thing, why the hell did you buy the pay-per-view? It's that kind of issue where like if you weren't really into the ECW thing, you weren't going to get this magic recaptured. This was from the beginning going to be a nostalgia show, right? So, and that they had built this entire show purely on the nostalgia. They announced one match. They announced two, but the one match that you knew for sure was going on in this pay-per-view was Tommy Dreamer versus Raven. The other match, you knew that Rob Van Dam was going to wrestle, and they said it was Jerry Lynn in like a 5-second bit. But other than that, you didn't know any of the matches. You didn't know who was going to show up, aside from Stevie Richards, Raven, Tommy Dreamer, Sandman, Rob Van Dam, and like Team 3D and Rhino. Like, those guys who went in the ring were the only guys you knew for sure would be there. And that's what killed me about the way this pay-per-view was advertised, was how do you once again, I go to this really basic, simple booking theory where I simply ask the question, if you've got a pay-per-view and you want people to buy it, you have to get people interested in buying it. How do you do that? You have to tell them what they're going to see. You have to book matches. You can't just say, tune in and see an ECW show. You can't. You got to give them something. You got to give them something to be excited about. And Tommy Dreamer versus Raven wasn't it. So I tune into this ECW show, and there was like a half-hour pre-show, and once again they are really going heavy on the nostalgia factor, where like everyone is all wistfully talking about ECW and the glory days that they used to have, and how Tommy is just going on forever and ever about how WWE tarnished his legacy and just killed his fucking legacy, and he didn't want to go out that way, and he wanted one last night for glory. He wanted to showcase what he did and immortalize it. He wanted to have this immortal night that would live forever and like sear in everyone's minds, and together as one we are going to stand in this ring and put on a hardcore show and tell the world this was ECW, and just like it had this real defiant air about it, like we are going to show Vince what hardcore wrestling really is. And so I'll just tell you right off the bat, this was a horrible show. It was really, really bad. And I know you think I come at this wanting to make fun of the show, wanting to hate it. I don't. I like ECW. I would love to see these guys put on a great show. And if it was good, I would tell you. And I will tell you what worked in this show. It wasn't much, but I'll tell you what worked. But this show was basically god-awful. And there's very simple reasons why it was so bad. And so, when I walked away from this show, when it was over, there's really two ways that I had to judge everything that I saw. The first is just from a pure wrestling standpoint. Like, in terms of match quality, was this any good? Was this on par with stuff you'd expect from wrestling nowadays? And the second thing you had to consider, and this is a very special case, in fact, probably the only case that you wanted to consider when watching this show. I think if you were tuning in, they were pretty much telling you when you tuned into this show, this is for nostalgia. You're not going to see a very good... They basically all but told you, you're not going to see a very good show. You're going to see your ECW favorites tie it up for one more time, lace up the boots one more time, and put on a hell of a show that is representative of hardcore wrestling. That's really what they wanted you to judge it on. And so, really, I started forgetting. I was like, okay, fuck the matches. Are they putting on a show that's iconic of hardcore wrestling? And I saw a lot of it. So I'll tell you what's going on. And so I'm actually not going to rely on my notes all that much. Just to remind me what the matches were, because there was a lot of stuff going on here that was kind of subtle or easily forgotten. Because the first major problem with this show is that this is an ECW show, okay? And the real problem is they can't say ECW. Not only can't they say ECW, they can't even say anything that was in ECW. Meaning names, gimmicks, footage, music, anything that was related to ECW, they couldn't say it. So you had all these wrestlers coming in, and I'm sorry, my nose is a little stuffed up, so I'm sorry if I sound a little nasally. So you had all these wrestlers coming in, trying to put on an ECW show, but their hands were tied the whole time because they don't own the names. WWE owns the names for the most part. And so basically everyone who walked that aisle was under an assumed name. So you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. But the first match was... I'll tell you what it really was, and then I'll tell you what they called it. It was the FBI, Little Guido, Tracy Smothers, and Tony Mamaluke against Kid Cash, Simon Diamond, and Johnny Swinger. Or as I like to call it, the team of 3 random guys who we couldn't fit in any other matches, so we put him against the FBI match. I'm actually stunned they were able to say the words, say the letters FBI, that they were able to call them the FBI, because they couldn't use it like any other name from ECW, but FBI they got. Little Guido they couldn't call Guido. Little Guido they called him like Guido something something. Tracy Smothers used his real name, and Tony Mamaluke was just Tony Luke, because you can't say Tony Mamaluke. I said Simon Diamond is completely out of shape, and Tracy Smothers is just... he looks like he's about 70 years old. The match was awful, and after about 4 minutes it broke down when Simon Diamond announced he blamed Kid Cash for the reason they weren't wrestling that well. And he said, maybe we can't out-wrestle the FBI, but we can sure as hell out-dance them. And so, in the middle of the match stops, and they start having a dance-off with really horrible, like, it was almost like department store music, like dance music. It was, and these washed-up old bastards started dancing and dancing horribly. And right off the bat, I was just like, fuck you. I was like, Dixie Carter, fuck you. Fuck TNA. Fuck this show. This was the hardcore show, and right out of the gates, it was pretty clear that they have no fucking clue what hardcore wrestling really is. I was watching these guys do like the fake swimming routine, like laying on their bellies and trying to swim in rhythm to the music, and the FBI guys doing the robot, and all you had to do was just point at that and go, guys, this is what hardcore has become. This. It's so over. It's so dead. And, you know, you've got these guys just humiliating themselves in the ring. You can just see Dixie Carter hammering the stake into the heart of hardcore. This was so lame. I said this was utterly embarrassing. Kid Cash, Tony Mamaluke, and Guido are just about the only guys in the ring who can still go. They set up the generic Tower of Doom spot in the corner where everyone kind of stacks up in the corner and does like this big 6-man superplex. And the crowd gave that a merciful "this is awesome" chant. It was not awesome. I also noted for some reason the entire night the lights were drowning the ring in blue light, which was really distracting, I found. I don't know why they bothered doing that. Maybe to give it some kind of like back alley Fight Club look, but it didn't work. Once again, I have to question, you know, if you're doing an ECW reunion show, how can you possibly do that and not have it be in the Hammerstein Ballroom? When you have your ECW reunion show take place in the Impact Zone, it loses a lot. And once again, it's one of those things where it's not taking place in the home of hardcore. You're changing everyone's names. They're old, they're washed up, they can't wrestle, and they're not even doing hardcore matches anymore. It's not an ECW show. It's not hardcore. It's just not representative of what they wanted to put forward. Mike Tenay and Taz explained that Tenay is radically out of place on the hardcore show, and they couldn't get Joey Styles because of contractual obligations to the WWE. I don't know if Joey Styles would have showed up anyway if he were not contractually tied to the WWE, but once again, yet another iconic part of ECW is not there. They also explained that Jerry Lynn's got a back injury he sustained in working out and is pulled out of the main event, so it's RVD versus Sabu now, which is just about the only match that they could have possibly done that would have been worth a crap, although Kid Cash probably would have been the best choice, although I don't think anybody would have bought this show based on RVD versus Kid Cash. They start doing a bunch of Where Are They Now spots to fill in time, because it was pretty obvious they didn't have enough guys to really do any matches. So they start doing Where Are They Now spots, and they tackle Pitbull #1 Gary Wolf, And they don't really tell us where Gary Wolf is, but he's in a car. And that's it. They have Gary Wolf say he can't come because he's busy with other stuff, but you guys have fun. But they don't really tell me where he is. And then they find the Blue Meanie, and the best I could get is Blue Meanie is out behind a building. That's where he is now. He is behind the building. Then they start doing these things where the TNA guys start reminiscing about stuff in ECW that they remember, and then they start showing guys who are talking about memories of ECW, and I doubt they've ever seen a single fucking episode of ECW in their lives. Primarily AJ Styles, who starts talking about the incident that really made Tommy Dreamer who he is, in terms of, like, his big face turn, when the crowd really started to accept him as this hardcore wrestler dude. And that was when Tommy got caned by the Sandman. The big iconic caning segment. And so AJ's talking about how, it was awesome, I totally saw Tommy get caned 10 times by the Sandman. He never fucking saw this. Fuck you, AJ. And what made it even worse is, it would have been really cool to see that, but they couldn't show footage of that because WWE owns the footage. Once again, this show is neutered because they can't ever show any possible aspect of ECW. Then they go... Al Snow's talking to Head and saying that he can't chant ECW. He bullshits with Stevie Richards and Nova. Nova brings in some fat fucker who's not the Blue Meanie, but he dresses like the Blue Meanie. Apparently he's some kind of security guy. I wrote, "This is brutal. They can't even wear their BWO shirts anymore. Blue World Order. They can't do that. They're wearing blue, but they can't wear the shirts." Next match, C.W. Anderson versus Too Cold Scorpio. This was actually a really good, but really basic match. And I wrote, C.W. really doesn't have that much left in the tank anymore, but he's such a good wrestler and he's such a good worker that he knows what his limitations are, and he knows how to work a match despite those limitations to kind of turn him into a positive. So he worked a really good match that saw him being on offense most of the time, had Scorpio bumping like a motherfucker for him, and they worked a good match. It wasn't a great match, and it wasn't even really that good, but for these two at this stage in their careers, was okay. This was probably the second best match of the night, I gotta tell you. And it wasn't that great, I said again, but it was probably number 2. RVD's backstage with Fonzie. They talk about how Jerry Lynn hurt himself and it's gotta be Sabu, and they say it's gotta be Sabu like 4 times. Then it's PJ Polacco versus Stevie Richards. And if you don't know who PJ Polacco is, that's the name they're using for Just Incredible now. Although it's probably his real name, but yeah, it's just incredible. PJ Polacco. Once again, it's an okay match, but there was really nothing memorable or hardcore about it because they wrestled a basic match. I noted that the crowd already seems to be losing faith in this show because really this is nothing like the ECW they remember. It's just not. Stevie hits the Stevie kick and wins. Justin starts to cane the shit out of him after the match, and so the lights drop. Sandman comes in and canes PJ. That's it, Once again, Sandman is entirely pointless if he's not walking through the crowd and drinking beer to the song Enter Sandman. He is completely... Sandman always sucked. Always. He was never any good. I'm sorry, he hit people with canes, and that was fucking it. On the best of occasions, he was a shitty wrestler. He was good, he was awesome for the entrance, that was it, okay? Without that, he's just a fat drunk fucker with a Singapore cane. And, again, it's moments like this where I really question why the fuck I'm watching this show, it really makes you look back on ECW and wonder why you like that in the first place anyway, because even that, in hindsight, probably wasn't nearly as good as I remember. And so, if anything, that's what this show is reminding you is, this really sucks, and it probably sucked a lot more than I remember back then, too. Then they do another Where Are They Now segment with Francine, who was, if you don't remember, Just Incredible's manager or valet or whatever you want to call her, who was used to be a real Krakow-looking chick. And I noted that Francine is way hotter now than she was in ECW. Like, she is milfy, like crazy, man. It was like, oh yeah. But Francine said basically that she's retired. She doesn't want anything to do with wrestling now. But yeah, I'm sure she's really happy she's not here. But had a really cute baby. In fact, that was seriously Francine showing up and saying that she wanted nothing to do with ECW anymore was probably like the highlight of the show. She was really good. Spike Dudley, Brother Runt versus Al Snow versus Rhino in a 3-way elimination dance. This was actually an okay match again. But I was really struck by how random and pointless this 3-way dance was. Like, these three guys, every one of these matches was a random assembly of wrestlers. There's no previous storylines, no feuds, no backstories to any of this. It was simply three random ECW guys in a ring doing a 3-way dance. Period. And when it comes down to Rhino, Al Snow, and Spike Dudley, how good could it really have ever been? If you know what I'm saying. Believe it or not, Al Snow was pretty impressive considering how long he's been in retirement. It was not a very good match. They did this really pointless spot where the ref took a bump, and he doesn't see Al Snow crank Rhino over the head with head, and then Spike Dudley takes a chair, smacks it on the mat, and then flops down doing the Eddie Guerrero bit where he's like, he wants the ref to think that Al Snow hit him with the chair. And I stood up from my chair and just yelled at the TV, in ECW, there's no disqualifications. Why are you doing a ref bump? Why are you doing a fake disqualification spot in ECW? It's impossible. And so, this shows you that nobody in this show understood ECW. Nobody in this show understood hardcore wrestling. In fact, we haven't seen a hardcore match yet, but Spike killed Al Snow with the acid drop, and immediately after that pinfall, Rhino gored the shit out of Spike, which raises the question, why the fuck we bother with a 3-way dance if we're just going to do one fall immediately after the other. Really short match. Oh, this match was horrible. Okay, Axel Rotten and Balls Mahoney against the Dudley Boys. That's who it really was. They called them Axel Rotten and Cajones versus Brother Ray and Brother Devon Team 3D. Balls Mahoney was called Cajones this time because you can't call him Balls Mahoney anymore. Even Balls looks really ashamed at this nickname bullshit. So they call out Joel They call out it was really Axel Rotten and Cajones out first, and they're like, we're the most hardcore team in the history of wrestling. Anyone want to fight us? Come out and fight us. And so Joel Gertner comes out, does his thing, and he starts. You know, if you don't even know who Joel Gertner is, this is totally lost on you. But Gertner comes out, and actually, I noted he looked really bad. I don't know if he looked ill. I'm not saying I'm not being critical of the guy. I was actually kind of concerned for him because he came down and he looked either really upset or kind of ill. He looked bad. I don't know. I don't think anyone else saw that. I've talked to a few other people who were like, "Oh, Gertner was great," and he was great, but he looked kind of sickly to me. I don't know. So Gertner did a lot of really good shtick. He did his normal stuff. And he did this bit about Lady Gaga, which, trust me, the bit about Lady Gaga was the most hardcore thing to occur all night on the TV show, and that's really sad. They went on to have probably one of the worst matches of the year by quite a lot. This match was awful. Axl Rotten cannot move anymore. Like, he cannot wrestle at all. He moves at about 33% speed at best. He gassed out almost immediately and couldn't do anything. And even then, he should have probably realized that his punches looked feeble. He couldn't move. He couldn't run. He really should have just been walking around with like a garbage can lid, like just swatting people over the face with it, and they probably would have sold it a lot better than they did. But yeah, Axl was bad. Bubba spent most of the match hitting Balls Mahoney in the head with a styrofoam head several hundred times, and Balls, for some reason, was selling it like it was just bloody murder. It was a styrofoam head. Like, he threw it against the guy, and it like bounced and made this really hollow sound, and it was really sad to watch. The crowd was just so happy this was the first no DQ match of the night that they really didn't care that the match sucked ass. Pretty much they were happy because they knew that they were going to see a table on fire and someone was going to go through the table, because Bubba all but promised that would happen the show before. So this whole time they were cheering like EC-Dub, this is awesome, we want tables, and all that stuff. Just entirely because they knew that Balls Mahoney was going through a table in this one, you know? I got really upset at this match. I hated it. I was pretty much raving mad about this one, because at near the end of the match, Balls Mahoney whips out a lightsaber. And he starts whipping the saber around, and like he has this little routine where he's like doing this dueling pose with the lightsaber, and Bubba is like looking around like he's in deep shit. He's like, this guy's got a lightsaber. Like, oh my god, this fuck. And so Devon throws him a lightsaber, and they start having this lightsaber duel in the middle of the ring until Balls Mahoney wins like a test of strength where they clash swords, and they're pushing against the sword. They're like, ah. And eventually Balls Mahoney like runs him through with the sword, and Bubba, it's like he screams, like he's like, ah, and he sinks to his knees, and then Balls is setting him up for another shot, and then Bubba takes the lightsaber and hits him in the nuts with it, and this was god awful. Once again, I was just like, I was really struck by this match, you know. This is what was going on in my head. I was watching the lightsaber duels. I was watching Bubba hit this guy in the head with a styrofoam head. They were selling this. The lightsabers were, the guy was screaming and people were laughing, and it was really dumb. And I just kept picturing in my head Tommy Dreamer in the ring of the Impact Zone, in tears, talking about how Vince McMahon drove everyone he worked with, everyone he loved away, how Vince McMahon ruined hardcore, how Vince McMahon forced him to quit, how Vince McMahon made him prostitute himself to feed his family, turned ECW into a complete joke, how he never understood hardcore, and how, please, Dixie Carter, please, he was begging, he was on his knees begging Dixie Carter, please, Dixie, give me one night. Give me one night to do it right. Give us one night to show people, show the world what hardcore wrestling is. And Dixie says, okay, you've got your night. Show the world what hardcore is. And it's Bubba and Balls Mahoney having a fucking stupid grade school lightsaber battle. And it's the FBI dancing like idiots. And it's Al Snow and a guy who's not the Blue Meanie. Nobody's wrestling under their real names that they were. Nobody's coming out to their music. The entrance videos were basically PowerPoint slides. And they're just making fools of themselves. It's a bunch of washed up, broken old men making fools of themselves. Just acting like idiots. It was literally a group of 20 guys who used to work together, playing grab ass in the ring, and the Impact Zone, they were cheering, they were laughing. I don't know why. I guess, again, I guess maybe I'm not the guy who really appreciates this show. Maybe I should have just been happy that, you got to see these guys in the ring one more time, wrestling and just doing it for fun. But that's not what was promised. That's not hardcore wrestling. That's not ECW. I started to imagine, as this lightsaber battle was going on, I started to imagine what would happen if this shit went down in the Hammerstein Ballroom in 1996. You picture that. You think about Tommy Dreamer in tears in the middle of the fucking ring, begging Dixie Carter. You think of that. You think what would have happened then if Tommy Dreamer, even when the first one night stand came up in the WWE, can you imagine what would have happened if that all started by Tommy Dreamer getting in a WWE ring in front of Vince McMahon, begging him, "Please, Mr. McMahon, please, sir, please, give us one night, Mr. McMahon." And then they go to the Hammerstein Ballroom, and then Tommy Dreamer gets in the ring. You tell me what that reaction is. That's the ECW audience. That's the ECW hardcores. And they would have pissed all over this shit. And rightfully so. This was a circus. This was the very definition of clown shoes bullshit wrestling. This was pointless. This was worthless. This was not hardcore. It was dumb. And the fact that they were out there calling this a hardcore match, I've seen backyard wrestling that was truer to the spirit of that kind of hardcore, and I would never, ever put forward backyard wrestling as any kind of legitimate wrestling. But over this, at least those guys have passion. At least those guys, love what they do. They want to put on a good show. They want to entertain. They want to make it look like this stuff hurts. They want to make it look like this is real. They're not out there playing with fucking lightsabers, hitting each other with styrofoam heads, and trying to live in the past like that. The crowd is chanting, "This is awesome." The Impact Zone is the easiest, most prostituting group of people in the world. They will proclaim anything awesome. I'm convinced about that. So Balls Mahoney goes through the flaming table, which I guess made the crowd happy, but I've seen it. So they start doing this stuff, and they the Dudleys win, and they start talking about how they are the greatest tag team in the history of ever, and then the Gangstas hit the ramp, Mustafa and New Jack. And if you're not familiar with those guys, basically New Jack's entire gimmick was his music would hit, he would push a shopping cart or carry a garbage can full of shit to the ring, and he would just hit everyone with everything in the garbage can while rap music is playing, and he would just leave as the same music was. Like, the music would never stop. He would just hit everyone with everything in his can, kill everyone in the ring, and leave. So, New Jack and Mustafa come out. Pardon me, I'm sorry about that. This free and clear is killing me. So, they start coming down to this really generic... If rap music had department store music equivalent, this would be it. So, it was like the most generic, neutered, awful rap music to ever come down. Like, nothing you could sing to, nothing you could hum along, like, nothing that was memorable or gangsta of any kind, you know, like, nothing that was iconic of New Jack. You know, so they came down and they started hitting everybody with everything. And, of course, the Dudleys are selling it like cartoon characters. Like, if Wile E. Coyote had a hot branding iron shoved up his ass. That's how Devon and Bubba were selling this stuff. So, like, New Jack would hit Bubba in the back with a crutch. And Bubba would flail his arms in the air and jump around, grabbing at his back, going like, "Oh, the pain, the pain!" And, like, he would hit him with a garbage can, and Bubba would do a flare flop. And, in fact, Bubba did the flare flop 3 times in this match. At least 3. And so, these guys, they weren't taking it seriously at all. They weren't trying to put on any kind of decent match. They were just... They were just fucking around. You know, it was just... It was played purely for laughs, and it wasn't that funny. And when it was all over, like, they basically ran out of weapons. And so the Dudleys stand up, the Gangstas stand up, Axl Rotten and Balls Mahoney stand up, and then they all hug. Never mind that fucking New Jack just attacked you with a crutch and a stapler. It's all in good fun. They started hugging. It was such bullshit. It was just humiliating. And this show is almost over, by the way. So, it was Raven versus Dreamer in a street fight with Foley as the special guest ref. This was a weird match. This was only the second no disqualification match of the show. And they suck. That's about the long and short of it, is they suck. Tommy Dreamer and Raven suck. Tommy Dreamer's knees are piles of crap. He can't move anymore. Raven looks like he's about 100 years old. He looks like Big Boss at the end of Metal Gear Solid 4, I think. Like, he looks fucking decrepit. And I'll tell you part of the problem. Most of the problem is the fact that he bleaches his hair blonde. I wish he wouldn't do that. Because it makes his hair look white. It makes him look way, way older. I don't know why he thinks that's a good look for him. Not getting that. But this, thankfully, though, was not a match that was played for laughs. They were actually playing this like there was something at stake here, which actually made me a lot happier than most of the other matches that ever went on here. And I think that was why I liked the C.W. Anderson Too Cold Scorpio match, was because there was one guy who was playing a heel, there was one guy who was playing a babyface, and they were wrestling this match like it mattered. It didn't matter, but they wrestled it like it did. And that accounts for a lot. If you've got these guys who are in the ring playing grab ass, nobody's going to care about it. Nobody's going to care about the level of violence that's going on. Nobody's going to call it hardcore when you're trying to make them laugh. It was not an ECW show. So, Raven and Tommy Dreamer start doing like a bunch of really weird spots. It was basically... This is how I would describe it. It was basically every single hardcore match, like every single hardcore title match you used to see in the WWF, where it basically amounted to two guys going to the ring, hitting each other with a bunch of stuff, going under the ring, getting more stuff, hitting each other in the head with all that stuff, and then eventually one guy would get hit on the head with something really, really hard, and that guy would get the pinfall. That was basically every single hardcore match you've ever seen. The only thing that elevated above that was the fact that there was a long-term storyline going on between Raven and Tommy. There were some weird spots going on, though. There was a spot where they're both outside, and Raven sees Tommy grab a beer from someone in the audience. He sees Tommy take a drink of the beer. He sees Tommy approaching with the beer in his mouth. He sees Tommy stop in front of him with the beer in his mouth. Tommy spits the beer in his face, and Raven is stunned by this eventuality. He's like, "Ah! My eyes! What? How did... Ah! And then, like, are you fucking stupid, Raven? What the fuck did you think was going to happen? Do you think he was just stopping for a beer break?" So, there was another really disturbing spot. The first blood of the night, second to last match, by the way, first person to bleed, was Tommy when he took a drop toe hold into the chairs. Then Raven started beating him up in front of Tommy's kids. His wife and kids were front row, sitting next to Dixie. And, like, Tommy's, like, bleeding all over the place. His face is covered in blood. And, like, I don't even know how old his kids are. I would say anywhere from, like, 6 to 8 years old. And they're seeing their daddy just gashed fucking open. Raven is just going to work on him with, like, a cookie sheet, beating him over the fucking head, like, biting at the open wound on his head, like grabbing him by the head and, like, ah, and grabbing on his fucking head. And the kids are just, they're freaking out. Like, my God. Who brings their kids to see? That's fucking disturbing. So they, like, I don't know if it's part of this, like, they start escorting the kids out, because maybe in that moment they realized that this was kind of a miscalculation. Like, maybe they shouldn't really see their father being, like, just brutalized by Raven. But yeah, they got out of there pretty good. Probably the best spot of this match was when Tommy Dreamer put Raven in the crippler crossface, but he had a length of barbed wire that he was using to, he put the barbed wire in his mouth and was, like, cranking back on it for the crippler crossface. That was actually a pretty cool spot. That was the second most hardcore thing to take place in this entire show. So, yeah. Hollywood Nova attack to save Raven. Raven starts arguing with Mick Foley, who attacks him with the fucking sock. And once again, I ask you, just imagine what would happen if Mick took the fucking sock out in the Hammerstein Ballroom. In fact, you don't have to imagine that. Go find One Night Stand and see what happens when Mick takes the fucking sock out. They boo the shit out of him. Not hardcore. Okay, then the funniest part of the night came out when Raven's getting his ass kicked, and some guy runs out and starts attacking and backing up Raven. And the crowd has no idea who this is. Even Taz starts saying, "Who the hell is that?" I didn't know who the hell that was until Mike Tenay very helpfully told us that that was Lupus. And even then I was like, who? Then I remembered. There was a guy in Raven's faction for a short while, I believe near the end of ECW, who dressed like a homeless dude, who was wearing like a bunch of like really baggy clothes, had like a sweater tied around his waist, had really long hair and like a hood that was always over his face, and he was always picking his nose. I think that was that guy. But the crowd started chanting, "Who are you?" That's not a good sign. When the crowd has no fucking clue who you are, and has never had any fucking clue who you are. I doubt Raven even remembered who this guy was when he came out. Beulah comes out and tries to save Tommy. Bunch of shenanigans. Tommy gets handcuffed until Raven finally takes out the injured knee and DDTs him on the chair. Raven wins. Then they go backstage to set up for the next match. They're trying to kill time for the next match. There's Jeremy Borash and SoCal Vel. They're plugging something, and then the Gangstas come out. New Jack and Mustafa come out. And New Jack comes up to SoCal Vel and he's up, Hey, what's up, white girl? And so Mustafa basically kidnaps SoCal Val to rape her, by the way. Mustafa's going to put his dick in SoCal Val against her will. And then when they do that, New Jack gets really close to Borash. And he says, it's just me and you now. JB's like, yeah, I guess it is. And New Jack says, you know what that means? JB's like, what? And New Jack says, it means you're my bitch. Borash says, I'm your bitch? New Jack says, you're my bitch. Puts his hand on his shoulder. And then they cut. And they cut to the desk. And Mike Tenay and Taz are laughing because you see, New Jack is about to put his black wiener inside Jeremy Borash's white ass against his will. He is about to fuck Jeremy Borash in the ass. He is about to prison rape a man. And that's funny. RVD versus Sabu. Hardcore rules. I've seen this match 100 times. And actually, you know what? It was probably the cleanest match that Sabu has ever wrestled. I don't think he fucked anything up. Which for Sabu is amazing. This was an okay match. I'm trying to think of anything else I can say about this match, because it was okay. That's about it. It was okay. I know, again, this is going to seem like I'm really hard to please, but I've seen this match like almost every time I ever got an ECW tape or a DVD. There's a match between RVD and Sabu in it, and they wrestle each other like crazy every time. I've seen it. RVD wins, obviously. I really don't know what else to say about that match. It was just sad. Not only was it sad to see what hardcore has become, it was even sad to see the guys who still... I'm trying to think of a way to say it. It's almost like the guys who were there, like Tommy, like the guy who is apparently iconic of hardcore wrestling, that guy doesn't get it. He's the guy who booked this show, you know? And he booked that. Tommy begs for one more night, and this is the best he can do. And that's really sad. And again, I'm not being funny. I'm not. I would have loved to have seen these guys put on a better show than this, but I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say. If you like this show, I'm not saying you can't like this show. I'm saying that if all you wanted was to see these guys lace up the boots one more time, get in the ring, and have another match, and have fun, you got your wish. You got it. But what you didn't see was hardcore wrestling. You didn't see something that was up to the standards of ECW. You didn't see something that was even close to those standards. And that's what they promised. They promised something that would immortalize the legacy of hardcore wrestling. I expected a lot more. I expected something entertaining. I expected something violent and brutal. I expected something that was worthy of the title ECW. But the very heart and soul of it was absent. They didn't have Joey Styles. They didn't have Paul Heyman. They didn't have most of the iconic wrestlers that made that company great and made it more than just a blood and guts promotion. They didn't have Lance Storm. They didn't have the great wrestlers. They couldn't even get like Ray or Tajiri or any of the great lucha guys like Masato Tanaka. None of those guys who really put ECW on the map. They got a bunch of like second-rate dudes, all of whom are really old and can't go anymore. And either, like, you could blame it on Tommy's incompetence in booking a show. You could blame it on these old guys who just couldn't deliver something up to their old standards. Whatever you want to blame it on, you're probably right. But they couldn't do it anymore. And, I saw a great ECW show in the first One Night Stand. That was pretty much the closure they needed. I don't see how that trivialized the legacy of hardcore. Yeah, I just, this was a really bad show. This is, it's a strong contender for worst show of the year. I can't imagine anything really outdoing this one in terms of, just in terms of poor match quality. Just because you're never likely to get this many broken down dudes in the ring putting on matches this crap. It's like even at TNA's worst, you usually have some talented wrestlers who can do some pretty good stuff. The booking is way worse, of course, because you've actually got storylines to consider. But I really regret having spent the money to watch that show. Sorry, my nose is itching. Raw was actually a lot better, and I didn't take notes on it because I was doing a lot of other stuff. But there wasn't a lot to this Raw. It was really just continuing the story of the Nexus, like the team's fractured alliance. Man, my nose itches. I'm sorry. But by the end of it, they had it was Bret Hart and John Cena against Edge. I was almost going to say Edge and Christian. Edge and Chris Jericho as the Nexus's lumberjacks. And so the real story of this entire show the whole time was the fact that they were desperately trying to seek replacements for Edge and Chris Jericho. So, and they weren't sure about the Great Khali. So, like, they kept coming out, and they kept trying to find replacements, and so they were like, maybe the Hart Dynasty will do it. And so they cut backstage, and the Nexus is beating up the Hart Dynasty, so they're out of it. They can't possibly do it. Then they're like, what about Mark Henry? And so Mark Henry's like, I'm going to show you guys I can be part of this team. And then the Nexus just comes out and beats up Mark Henry. So that's their MO. Is the Nexus is just really good at just Pearl Harboring dudes backstage. That's what they do. So by the end of it, they start having this lumberjack match. Bret Hart basically never even gets involved because he can't wrestle at all anymore. Seriously, if you're still excited about Bret Hart, I refer you to the WrestleMania match, which was one of the worst matches I've ever seen in my life. The real story was they kept throwing John Cena out, and the Nexus had beat him up, and they kept throwing Chris Jericho out, and the Nexus didn't really want to beat him up until Jericho was like, what are you doing? Help us out. And then the Nexus beat Jericho up. And so by the end of it, the rest of the team came down, and Edge and Chris Jericho decided, you know what, fuck it, they've been beating us up for too long, and so Edge and Chris Jericho have rejoined the team, and they're united. The worst part of the show, I distinctly remember another Alicia Fox match. Alicia Fox and Melina. Wow. She didn't bust out her axe kick. No, she's found an all-new move to botch. And that move that she can botch now is a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker. They've given Alicia Fox a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker. And you can only imagine how badly she fucked that one up. I honestly, when she did it, I didn't think she had actually hurt Melina. I thought she had just dropped Melina right across her knee and shattered her leg in about 3 places. Alicia, I mean. I thought Alicia had just broken her leg at the ankle, shin, and knee. I thought it was just like her knee just... She picked her up and like dropped her on her knee, and her knee just like folded. Like I was like, yee, that was bad. That was a really gross looking spot there. Alicia, babe, I don't know what they see in you, but you don't have it. Alicia is a terrible fucking wrestler. She is I've gone on this. I've ranted about this at great length. She is worse than bad. She's dangerous. You know what I mean? Like, you can put up with a bad wrestler. She's going to hurt somebody. She is going to kill somebody. I would rather deal with a bad wrestler than one who is likely to maim me. Like, one who is likely to paralyze me. Other than that, I almost have no memory of this goddamn show. Which is kind of weird because I saw all of it. A lot of it was the Nexus thing. The Miz... Who did the Miz beat? Oh, Miz beat Evan Braun. And by the way, I get so many angry Twitter messages about, he's Evan Bourne. He's not Evan Braun. Why do you keep mispronouncing his name? Well, it's because... You know what? I'm not even going to explain it to you. He's Evan Braun. To me, he's Evan Braun. Thank you, Ozzy. He's the same reason I call Kofi Kingston Kobe Johnston. And it's John Sheamus. It's the guest host, people. The guest hosts. They fuck up everyone's names. And so whenever a guest host fucks up somebody's name, I have to call them by that name from now on. Because it's an unfunny gag that I've carried on to this day. And damn it, I'm sticking with it because I'm committed to the bit. Yeah, so... yeah, I'm sorry, I've let you down on the Raw recap, but it was kind of a forgettable show, to tell you the truth. It was really just setting up the 7-on-7 at SummerSlam. That was really all it was. They fed Sheamus the setup for Randy Orton. They keep teasing the Miz is going to do his thing and cash in his suitcase, and so Miz need to look really strong, Orton need to look really strong, and so everyone's looking strong going into the pay-per-view. It does look like a pretty good show. I gotta tell you the truth. I honestly am interested to see where the whole Nexus thing goes. I would like to see Nexus win this thing just because if Nexus loses, I think they lose a lot of their steam. I don't... The one thing that Nexus... The main problem that Nexus has is that they're NXT rookies, and nobody fucking takes them seriously. So... they don't book them strong singles wins. They don't make them look like dominant wrestlers of any kind. And they need to look strong wherever possible. So if they lose here, if they lose in a match where they are utilizing their one great strength, as in the strength, the Wolfpack tactics and numbers, if they can't even win that match, their entire menace is just gone. You know, they're not going to be taken seriously as a threat anymore this whole time. So, I'm going to go. I got a lot of work to do. So thanks for listening, you guys. I'm sorry Hardcore Justice wasn't that great a show. I wish I could have helped you out. But I honestly, what made it even worse to me was the fact that somebody donated a set of Dragon Gate DVDs to me in the mail. And so just before I saw Hardcore Justice, I saw the entire first DVD of Dragon Gate. It's the best of Dragon Gate thing. So I saw the whole first DVD of that, and those matches were so good. It made basically like every wrestling match I've seen on American TV for like the last 6 months look like shit. Like just raging, galloping piles of diarrhea in comparison to what I saw on Dragon Gate. I posted on Twitter, like, these Dragon Gate guys, maybe it's just a Japanese thing, probably is, but they treat their championships with such dignity and reverence that they look, when a title changes hands, when there's a championship match, it means something. You know? Like, you don't have a guy cashing in a fucking briefcase whenever he wants and winning some charade of a match. You don't have you don't have the title defended under 24/7 rules, which is essentially what the Money in the Bank briefcase is defending the world title under hardcore 24/7 rules. Really. So whenever somebody cashes in the match, it's a fluke. It's a complete sham of a match. It's just some guy literally steals the title and runs away. That's Money in the Bank. I hate Money in the Bank. it completely devalues the entire championship. And so, like, Dragon Gate, when they do, like, a title match in Dragon Gate, the world, that whole federation, stops. Like, they bring out the commissioner, they bring out, like, a special ref, they bring out, like, press agents who, like, surround the ring and take photos of the two contenders squaring off before their title match. They have the national anthem before the fucking match. They show the title off to, like, all four corners. And, like when this goes down, you're like, this means something. Like, this is an important thing that's going on. This title is important. And so, when you watch what's going on with these shows, where, like, some guy just throws a briefcase at a referee and pins a guy who's already been beaten up, and then he's like, I'm the champion now, I'm the best in the world. Nobody believes that. You know, nobody really believes the guy who holds the belt is the best wrestler in the world, or whoever holds the belt now is some kind of master of the game. No, it's because the guy won a fucking briefcase and jumped on an unconscious man, you know. That's pretty much all the title means anymore. So, you know, there's not, like, although what I do find funny in Dragon Gate is the fact they have overtly heel referees. Like, they have bad guy referees who are just, like, out to overtly screw you, which I found was really funny. I'm not quite sure I understand that completely yet. And I'm also not completely sure how Dragon Gate handles tag team matches, because sometimes they tag each other, and sometimes a guy will just enter the ring, and the other guy leaves. Like, they'll start double-teaming, like, illegally double-teaming a guy, and then the legal man just walks out. And the ref is okay with that. It's kind of weird. It's hard to explain unless you've seen it, but, like, tags are just kind of, like, if the referee seems to look over and says, like, yeah, you might as well have tagged the guy, he just lets you in. I don't know. It's kind of funny that way, although it doesn't really seem to raise that many logical problems. Like, you don't, like, stand up and go, that's bullshit, he didn't tag! Like, if a guy walks in, you're just like, he's in now, you know? Like, it seems to work out, but yeah. I was watching PWG and Dragon Gate, and actually, I'm actually liking Dragon Gate even more than PWG. I think the main reason I don't like the PWG show as much as I did the other one was because, like, the PWG thing has, like, 3 DVDs in it. And Super Dragon is in almost every match of at least the first disc. He's, like, in every match! It's like Super Dragon versus El Generico, Super Dragon versus Kevin Steen, Super Dragon in a tag team match, and, like, I was like, enough with the fucking Super. I got Super Dragon versus CM Punk. Like, I was just like, Super Dragon! You know, that guy was everywhere. So I was like, I would have liked to have seen a little more variation, or at least spread out the Super Dragon matches to where, like, it wasn't 5 Super Dragon matches in a row. I just like saying Super Dragon now. But, I mean, really, nothing wrong with PWG. It was just like, I started skipping Super Dragon matches to get to other people. I just wanted to see other moves being done. Like, I saw Super Dragon's curb stomp like 20 times in a row. It was crazy. There's also some kind of ridiculous matches. I remember seeing there was like a hardcore match between Kevin Steen and Super Dragon that was just ridiculous. This match went on for like 25 minutes, and these guys hit each other with moves that would kill mortal men. And not only were they kicking out of those, they started doing the same moves through tables, into, like, tables covered with thumbtacks. And I was like, Jesus Christ. They were still kicking out of these moves. Like, it was just insanity, these moves these guys were kicking out of. And so I was just like, somebody get pinned. Somebody lay down, because it was really ridiculous. Anyway, I'm blabbing on. If you want to see good wrestling, check out Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, check out Dragon Gate. Really, you can't go wrong with those promotions, because, like, if you are fucking sick of watching really bad wrestling, like TNA or ECW or Hardcore Justice, Dragon Gate and PWG will pretty much, or even Ring of Honor. You know, there's nothing wrong with Ring of Honor. Although I found Ring of Honor has been really hard for me to find copies of. I can't really find that many DVDs. I guess I can just order them directly from the site, but even then, they don't. I I remember trying to order some Ring of Honor DVDs and they were out of stock. So I don't know. Maybe you guys can hook me up. If you've got official copies, I might trade you for them. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But seriously, I'm almost a little sad that I picked up the Dragon Gate DVD because it's kind of ruined me for American wrestling now. Because actually, I won't say American wrestling because there actually is Dragon Gate USA, which is also really, really good apparently. But like the current mainstream wrestling that's going on with like WWE and especially TNA, you just watch this shit and go, oh my god, oh, this is so bad. Now, what's a little funny is the Dragon Gate stuff, impossible to follow. If there's any kind of storylines going on, impossible to follow because it's all in Japanese. The commentary is in English, but they don't tell you what the context is. They just kind of tell you, like, this guy's a good guy, this guy's a bad guy. We'll just roll with it until they start talking about the matches, and they're really knowledgeable about the moves these guys are busting out. So it helps the commentators can tell you who these guys are, what they do, stuff like that. But I just love it. You've got like I think it's like Dave Prazak or something like that. One of these guys has a gimmick where he throws like a protein shake in your face. And so, like, he throws the protein shake in this guy's face and he's like, oh, it's the protein mist! And I'm like, ew. Anyway, check that out. Dragon Gate is actually a lot easier for me to find, ironically enough, but check that out. It's really good wrestling. And I almost want to just review some fucking Dragon Gate because I'd love to talk about some good wrestling for a change. Although, Raw was pretty good. I will give it that. Not very memorable, but I wasn't just pissed off watching it like I was ECW. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.